Hi, my name is Allan Gallant, and I'm a stroke survivor, also the founder of Agora Network Ministries.
On July the 7th, 2017, I was at work when I got a phone call from my mother-in-law that Allan had had a stroke.
The day the stroke happened, I came home from work. I was on my computer. I was getting ready for a haircut, but in a split second, the stroke happened, and it changed my life forever.
She asked me if I was on my way, and I said, yep, I'm on my way, because she said, your husband has had a stroke. And at that point is when the reality sat in for me that, am I going to get there? Will I arrive before he passes away? Allan was a wonderful patient. He did everything that the doctors and nurses had asked him to do, and to watch him work so hard on his speech as the speech pathologist would come in and work with him, and the doctors would come in. It was amazing to see his determination of getting his speech back.
I was going through a lot of burnout. I was under a lot of stress, and I wasn't doing good in my head. I was diagnosed with a clinical depression and also severe anxiety. So, we lived in Nova Scotia for many years and been in pastoral work for 33 years. But the last number of years prior to the stroke, I was really struggling with a lot of issues in my life. There was like a peace that came over me as well, because I knew that this stroke was something I think God permitted, and so I knew He was very active within these moments and within the days following. I say to people that the stroke was the easy part of my recovery, because for some reason God really stepped in, and so I wasn't left with any paralysis other than my voice.
And we just knew that in our hearts that God would heal him, but He didn't totally heal him. He left him with a voice, a different voice, so he could be a voice for those who have no voice. It's what God took us through, and how He has taught us to grow and to rely on Him and to see His work of grace in our lives and how much He loves us. And I think that was the biggest lesson, to know that He wasn't done with us, that He still wanted to use us.
The recovery process physically was going well, but I noticed that over the weeks that I began to feel a little different inside. And I know now they were panic attacks from fear, and they were, I was going through post-traumatic stress disorder because of the injury of my brain. I went home. I was okay, but I wasn't really myself in many ways. The panic attacks became worse and worse. I was put on some medication, but that wasn't helping me because I was so acute in my panic attacks, and anxieties were off the charts. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I lost 30-some pounds, and one stress, 14 days, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't eat. And I remember wanting to always run away. And I thought, if this is my new normal, I didn't want it. So I began to think about ways to die. I began to think about dying by suicide because of I didn't know what to do. And we went to, people to help us, and they didn't know what to do either. So we were basically on our own to figure this out. So finally, one night, I had it, Bonnie had it, and we ended up in the hospital. And I said to my wife, I said, don't let them send me home. There's something wrong. And they brought in a crisis nurse. She just looked at me and went right up and got a psychiatrist in the mental health ward in the hospital. She came down, and she was a lifesaver, because when she said the words, "We can help you," for the first time in a long time, I felt hope again. And so I spent 10 days in the mental health unit to get the medication right and to really help me get balanced again. The journey wasn't over, because I went home after 10 days and I crashed again. I crashed really bad, and I hope that nobody has to go through what I did. We did get help. Well, interesting, in the mental health unit for those 10 days, I began to do what I do as a pastor. I began to care for others because I was feeling better. The medication was working, and the therapy that they were giving me was working on many fronts. So I began to open my eyes and see the hurt and the discouragement of people that are struggling so deeply with the mental health issues. And so I began to think about, is there a way that I could minister and serve in this way? I began to think about how do I serve as a one who's called into the gospel ministry. I knew that I couldn't preach again like I used to, and I couldn't pastor like I used to. So I dismissed the pastoral. So I began to pray. My wife and I began to pray and ask God, well, what's next? What can we do? And so we waited and prayed and thought. And then God began to put this in my mind again about how we can help people.
And I remember one time we went to a church, New Life, and they had asked Allan to share his testimony. And after Allan shared his testimony, someone came up to him and said, "You have to share this story. It has to be heard." And I think it was then that we realized, I remember saying to Allan, God has called us to ministry, and I don't know what it's going to look like, and we wanted to be faithful to that. And that first time that he spoke, I knew too within my heart that he has a plan for us, and thus we just kept moving forward with what do we do with our story? How is it going to look? And how is God going to use it in the future?
God had given me, I think, well before the stroke, because I was looking at maybe how I could get back into ministry. And he gave me the name Agora, and I didn't know why. So I researched the name.
And Agora means where the people gather. So the church is where people gather. Our heart and our heartbeat was still the church. And if we have journeyed through this, we knew that there was others journeying through it. So we just wanted in somehow, in some way, make our story known.
Our mission is to bring hope and healing to the local church by way of educating, equipping, and engaging them to the mental health conversation and to the stigma inside these walls. We resource the church with sustainable, quality, and practical resources that really help the individual in a holistic way, body, soul, and spirit. We do that by resourcing the church on the clinical side and on the biblical side. And so we have developed many good networks with a lot of good resources, because we want to get resources into the hands of the pastors and the leaders.
So we have asked professionals to come alongside of us. We have doctors of psychology, mental health nurses, social workers, psychotherapists. They have come alongside of Agora because they too have seen the need within the church, that it's time that the church is aware, that we take off the blinders and realize that there's people in our pews that are hurting. Our biggest thing is that churches will see how important it is, and to come alongside their local, Christian local psychotherapists, counselors, and set up something within their own church so that they can be the resource for the people within their church and also for people outside of the church. I feel as the church, we should be the leading ones. Not only have the information practically, but then we also have the spiritual information to give people so that they're holistically healed.
A ministry like Agora Network Ministry is so pivotal to help the church. Just on the what do we do? How do we do this? So we want to come aside the church, sort of speak and say, we have some answers for you. And so I hope that will come to be more and more as we move forward with this ministry and the church reaches out to receive help from us.